Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It is a Wednesday. Busy show today. We've got Poppy Miller of Paramount Plus joining us at 9:30. We've got Mike Conti joining us at 10 o'clock. Talk some Atlanta United. All kinds of things happening this afternoon. Games all over the world. We had games yesterday. Newcastle's looking pretty good these days, John. You're muted, John.
I know. I hit the button and I hit the button twice. But,
That's not how it works, but
no,
try again.
There we go. No, but you dropped $93 million, and you're hoping that these kinds of transactions can get you out of the relegation scrap. And one of the other games yesterday was part and parcel to that one as well. That was the benefactor of the team that was trying to stay out of the relegation scrap. So I still think it's going to be 3 teams for that one spot. Newcastle should not be a team that is relegated, but as we've said before, if they end up being relegated, I think it's more on Eddie Howe than it is on the players that they're bringing in to try and not stay relegated and stay up in the Premier League.
Sure, but we said that before. They just won 3-1. I think we can probably worry less about that these days. They're in pretty good shape with the additions they made. You're still shrugging your shoulders. You have no belief in Eddie Howe. Thought you liked Eddie Howe.
I did when he was at Bournemouth.
What do you do now? What's he doing that you don't like? I don't understand.
I just have this schleprock black cloud hanging over Newcastle until further notice. And yes, I know that you've won 2 in a row. Yes, I know you're unbeaten in your last.
Then shouldn't the cloud go away?
Let's ask Alex. Alex, has the cloud gone away?
It hasn't for you. I'm asking for you. I think it has. I think with the additions they made, I think the talent that they have, that cloud's got to go away. And back-to-back wins. I mean, when was the last time they won back-to-back games?
It's been a while, and having a healthy Alan St. Maximin also helps
a little bit.
So with everyone getting healthy once again, if they stay up, it's because of what they've brought in. And Eddie Howe, for me, like I said, Eddie Howe in the Premier League, I'm just like, I don't know. So I
thought you liked Eddie Howe. I'm confused.
I guess I liked Eddie Howe when he was with scrappy Bournemouth and having to do more with less, and when everyone
is this like liking the band before they joined the label?
I think so. It's like that hot indie band, and then they cut that first album that is mainstream, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, them," and just like, "Well, no, I followed them when they were playing in dive bars and things like that." So
this is nothing like any of that. It's a nice try, Jarrett, to try to dig John out of the hole that he's created with Newcastle fans, but it's a failure. Let's move over to Scotland, Jarrett. There's a big game today at 2:45 involving your team.
Yeah, there is. Involving a team that a lot of Atlanta fans have come to at least keep an eye on as well. Good luck, Aberdeen. Yes. Celtic seems to have figured things out, and Ange Postecoglou just brought in an abundance of really technical Japanese players from his time in Japan, where he was familiar with them, and they are flying high. And Aberdeen, on the other hand, needs to kind of settle things down a bit. They had a really good run before the winter break. Came out of the winter break not in terrible shape, but then a disappointing 2-1 loss over the weekend, and it would behoove them, especially with the teams above them, before we get to God's favorite method for selecting a league champion, the split.
No, it's stupid.
But you have the teams ahead of them dropping points, so they're not out of it by any stretch, but they need to kind of turn the engine over, getting some production from guys on the wing, from the guys in the midfield, would contribute to that, because the goal last weekend was scored by Christian Ramirez, who continues to just churn out really good performances for Aberdeen. It continues to be impressive that he's gotten to a place where they're running him out there. It's like, okay, show us what you can do. Just show us. No ifs, ands, or buts. Just show us what you can do, and he has.
They've got to get somebody else. I mean, 28 goals in 24 games. Defensively, not bad. 29 goals.
Be better when Constantine comes back.
Yeah, that was a really big loss early in the season. They've had some bad luck this year, but this is a situation where you're playing top team in the league right now, 1 point ahead of Rangers. A good performance can propel them. But I want to ask you about Celtic really quick before we move into some MLS updates.
Okay.
Is what we're seeing from Celtic after the first month or two of the season, the symbol of why you should look for managers with an identifiable game model philosophy and give them the tools to carry that out, because it feels like that's what's happened with Ange at Celtic. Is you knew exactly how he wanted to play. He knew what he needed to be able to play that way. They got it for him, and they're succeeding.
Yeah, and it's not even just the guys he's brought in. Callum McGregor, true. I didn't think Callum McGregor necessarily, I didn't know if he could play that kind of boss of the midfield role that Scott Brown played for so many years in Glasgow. And he has. He's done a great job at it. Even with a busted face, as Chris Boyd was quick to point out in Scotland this week, and lamenting that Rangers players didn't try and break his face further. Look, I mean,
the FA probably would have come after Chris Boyd if he had said that in England, as they're going after Wayne Rooney for a comment he made about a game from 2006. Because, the FA's got, nothing else to do these days.
Let's be honest, though. Like, Ange Postecoglou wasn't Celtic's first choice. Remember, they tried to get Eddie Howe. It was pretty much all but done and didn't happen. You got Ange in, and he's brought in guys who fit. Stayed, relatively sane with the roster budgets. Jurinovic as a right back has been great. The Czech right back, who I believe was with the Czech Republic during the Euros. They brought in Jota from Benfica. They've brought in, they brought in all the players from the J League who he was familiar with. So yeah, I mean, you have a model, and you want to bring those guys in, and you want to kind of get things turned over. It helps that Celtic has the transfer budget to make those moves in a more impactful way, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
they have the budget to get that done more quickly than, say, if St. Mirren decided to go this route, or Aberdeen going this route, or a Hibs deciding to go this route of, hey, we want to bring in somebody who wants to do something, and we don't necessarily have the transfer budget to do it all at once.
Then you have to stick with that person, and that's I think the point. And we've had this about, go back to Jesse Marsch at Leipzig, plenty of other managers that you bring in to do something. We'll talk about Chris Armas at Toronto, and if you bring them in to do something, you have to give them the tools to be able to do it. And sometimes you have to give them the time to be able to do it, especially if you can't give them the tools. And I would assume that Chris Armas went to Toronto to have them play in a different way. Well, he didn't have the players to do that, and then it all failed miserably, and they make the change, which it's kind of like, well, why'd you make the hire in the first place? Jesse Marsch to Leipzig, and they've said this afterwards, is, well, yeah, maybe we hired the wrong person. He said maybe you hired the wrong person because he didn't have the squad to be able to do what he wanted. They were kind of stuck in between. Ange is somebody who has quality, obviously, with what he's done and the way he's wanted to have his team play. And he's been given the resources and a little bit of time. Look, you don't need as much time if you have more resources, basically, is where it goes. And he's been able to put everything together quickly without like massive, crazy buys, not Newcastle kind of buys. It's a different kind of conversation for Celtic, but good, smart buys that fit the system. Absolutely. Let's see what MLS teams are doing in terms of those kind of buys and fitting systems, because I think that's the next kind of level of conversation that we have to start having. Is it's not just an evaluation of this player good, this price good, okay, yay. It's, well, how does the team play? What do they have in the position? What's the fit? And is this the missing piece for the manager to be able to implement everything they want to do? And I think that's something that some of the offseason moves in MLS have shown a little bit of a scattered approach at times, where it feels like this is a good deal for a player that's pretty good. Okay, we're going to take it. Well, do they fit? We'll figure that out. That's not always a way to have success, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, if you want to watch basically a slower version of that happening, it's going to be that game today with Aberdeen, because Aberdeen doesn't have the same transfer budget.
No,
they are trying to change things up. This is what was hilarious, by the way, about Matty Longstaff's comments about after he got banished from the Scottish League into like League 2 or something. Yeah, they're like, Scotland's just a kick and this is just a kick and chase league. Dude, you were playing on the only team not as involved in the old firm that holds the ball. Like, he's playing at Aberdeen. Aberdeen wants the ball. Like, they're one of 3 teams that consistently want the ball. Dude, it wasn't the fact that it's a kick and chase league. You weren't good enough to play on a team that actually wants to play with the ball at your feet.
He pulled out the note card from 1983 to try to use as an excuse for why he didn't make it at Aberdeen. And, well, he's in League 2 now. So good times.
Unfortunately, he can't find the exit sign to get outside of his own feelings. I'll let him do that on his own eventually.
Good luck to him. All right, MLS updates for the day. We could have an announcement out of Los Angeles today. Douglas Costa coming to the Galaxy. He is still under contract with Juve. So the way this is going to go, he was on loan to Gremio. They got relegated. He was okay, but not great there. They got relegated, so they can't keep paying his wages. All right, this is the way you solve it. You kill the loan to Gremio. He goes to LA on loan for 6 months. That's the last 6 months of his deal. Once he is free and clear, LA Galaxy will sign him to a new deal, 18-month deal. So it'll be ultimately 2 years in Los Angeles for Costa, 6 months on loan, 18 months under contract. $5 million per year is what's being reported. 31 years old. This is a very Galaxy kind of move. A guy who, Juventus is basically saying, here, take it. Yeah, it's fine. You can sign him on a free after. It's all good. Whatever. Cool. Here. What do you think about this move, Jarrett? I mean, is this a kind of move that's going to get the Galaxy back into playoff contention? Because they're on the outside looking in coming into the year.
It better. And I know, Jason, I think you have been more kind of bearish on the prospects of Greg Vanney if they don't make the playoffs than I have.
A little worried.
You've been more critical of, you've been more critical of long-term situation if Greg Vanney fails to make the playoffs this year. So they need to go for it. And plus, they are LA. They are the Galaxy. I know LAFC has been the flavor of the week for the last few years. But, man, the Galaxy's been there for a long damn time and has a lot of trophies in their cabinet that they point to. And it's been a while since they've been on top. They're going to be hungry. They're going to be kind of pissed off about it, to be honest. And they need to go out and swing big like this, I think, to make you want to hit it 500 feet. You got to swing big. Now, are they successful? I don't know. I mean, we were under the same situation with Atlanta when we talk about bringing in guys like, like an Eric Lopez, like a Jurgen Damm on a free. Like, it's they're not the same kind of players. Don't get me wrong, but
feel like
you're
taking
moves. Chances. Yeah, but you're taking chances. When you brought in Pity Martinez, when you brought in Ezequiel Barco, you're taking chances on, hey, this guy could be transcendent for our league, for our team. You have to take those chances. You can play it safe, but your ceiling is only so high.
Yeah, but the difference is, Jarrett, and in the comparisons you're making, I mean, Pitti was 25, I think, when he came here, not 31. Barco was a teenager. Lopez was a teenager. Lopez didn't have the same expectation. Jurgen Damm didn't have the same expectation either. And none of them were $5 million a year in salary. I mean, look, the Galaxy can pay the salary. That's not a big deal. It's not going to affect them doing anything else. He just takes a designated player spot. Once you've committed to the DP slot for somebody, pay him what you can pay him whatever you want to pay him. Doesn't really matter to the cap. I think the older you get, the more question marks there have to be. Doesn't mean it's a bad move, but considering that it didn't go great at Gremio, I don't know. Greg Vanney's time in LA has been weird because it started out a lot better than anyone expected last year. Chicharito got hurt. Then it went really south really fast and never completely came back. Now, they should have been in the playoffs last year. If referees had handled things correctly on decision day, then the Galaxy would have been in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But even in the position they were, it's weird how expectations can change, John, because I think coming into last year, if they didn't make the playoffs, no big deal. It's going to take time for Greg Vanney to make that squad his.
Right.
Then the way that they fell out of the playoffs, it's kind of like, oh, well, now the expectations are higher coming into 22 for Greg Vanney and his team. And you add a player like Costa, they're going to get even higher.
Yep. And what concerns me is, Douglas Costa's 31. And, we talked about the health of Chicharito last year. And if you end up with, a non 100% Chicharito, how much of that falls on Douglas Costa, and how, when it comes to a 34 match schedule and a 31-year-old Douglas Costa, who, for me, he's as inconsistent as you get. You got fantastic highs, but then you sit there and it's like, okay, he can drop off the page at the same time. I don't know if you're the LA Galaxy coming in this season, if you can afford that kind of stuff, if your expectations are as high as they are. And so the age for Douglas Costa concerns me. Surrounding players obviously will be a part of this when it comes to Costa in the lineup and Chicharito up top. So I have obviously more questions than answers when you bring in a Douglas Costa at the age of 31 to help things out with the Galaxy, who will, by all intents and purposes, anticipate that they will be in the playoffs and making a run in the Western Conference.
Costa played 26 games in the top flight in Brazil last year. He played in probably 27 other competitions because it's Brazil. But 26 games in the Brazilian Serie A, 3 goals, 2 assists, almost 2 chances created per game. That's pretty big. Dribbles, very good, 2.7 per game, 70% success rate. Okay, he's going to have to win his duels in this league, I think, to really make the difference. Finished not so well in the season, as Gremio's season was kind of going into the tank towards the end. But only 20 starts with Gremio in Serie A play. Yeah, I think durability is going to be a question, and he's going to have to consistently get crosses in looking for Chicharito. Going to have to consistently get through balls in looking for Chicharito. If he can do that, then their attack's going to be very dangerous. If he can't, then this is a lot of money that's being spent. And I have questions. We'll see. He has the quality. He has a great pedigree. But at 31, is he a difference maker in Major League Soccer? We're going to have to wait and see. 25-year-old Brazilian is linked to the New York Red Bulls, Luquinhas. He is at Legia Warsaw right now. 3 million euros is what it's sounding like the deal will be. Pat Novak, formerly of ESPN Poland, he covers Legia Warsaw, is reporting this on his Twitter. Agent has been seen in Warsaw. There's pictures of him trying to finalize this move, reportedly. Waiting on a visa to come to Red Bulls. Could leave today if everything goes well. He's a attacking midfielder, so basically he's played as a 10 at Warsaw. 31 games in all competitions this year. They've been in the Europa League. 3 goals, 1 assist in those 31 games. Not a big impact player in terms of getting on the score sheet, but another player. And we know with Red Bulls, look, it's not about stats in other systems. It's about how you fit the Red Bull system. They need some reinforcements. They might be getting one here. He's valued at $3.3 million, by the way, by Transfermarkt. They might be getting one to add a little bit more quality in that attacking portion of the field, Jarrett. And, you know, this has been the dilemma with the Red Bulls for years and years is how can you get a playmaker, a creator who can do the things that the Red Bull system requires, but when they have to have that killer pass, when they have to break down a defense, can you find that guy who can do both? We'll see if Luquinhas is that guy.
To a lesser extent, I thought they had it a little bit with Florian Valot, but he couldn't stay healthy.
But yeah, he was that kind of guy.
He fit that mold. I remember him making some really impressive moments, but he was also able to play that dog press.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to find that guy. It's not something that you just find on the street corner.
Kaku,
and I don't know where they find it.
No, you got to find the right
mentality. Kaku was more interested in fighting fans.
Well, there's that. Don't know how our friend Kaku is doing these days. I think he had a knee injury. I think late last year he had a knee injury, if I remember correctly. Another knee injury in the league, Brian Galvan of Colorado Rapids. He came to the club from Colón previously in Argentina. Had a really good year last year. Had surgery on his right knee, 9 months at least. That puts him out for the entire season. I guess if things really do progress quickly, maybe he could contribute in an MLS Cup run for Colorado if they get lucky with his recovery and them advancing to that stage. But 21 years old, it's awful timing for them, and they're going to have to figure out if they've got a replacement in-house on the wing. The other one that's on the board right now is Matt Turner's summer transfer. Looks like it is done, according to Tom Bogert and Taylor Twellman and a lot of other folks. He'll go to Arsenal in the summer. He'll be here in the first half of the MLS season. I mean, John, I think the question for me with this one is how hard do the Revs and how hard does Greg Berhalter push for a 6-month loan back to New England to finish this MLS season and take him playing consistently into the World Cup?
Yeah, playing consistently is the key phrase there for me. And when you're at Arsenal, yes, you're going to be challenging Aaron Ramsdale as the number one. But really, how much is Matt Turner going to be playing at Arsenal when, if you're Greg Berhalter, your top keeper is an entire ocean away and he's not the guy? where he's going to play. And you need we've talked about needing reps and staying in a rhythm. And if you're Matt Turner and you go overseas, unless you unseat Aaron Ramsdale as the number one in Arsenal, you're not going to be getting that. And so I think it would be, you're going to get as many phone calls, texts, messages, carrier pigeons, planes with banners behind them to try to impress upon Arsenal, hey, I want to have him back here because of how important it is in a World Cup cycle to have Matt Turner here. So now it's going to be a huge conversation to make sure that he stays as close to home and gets as much playing time as possible heading into a possible World Cup bid.
Jarrett, last one for you. What kind of kicks is Greg Berhalter going to have to send over to Mikel Arteta to get him to loan Turner back to the Revs for the second half of the year?
Original Jordans.
Like original OG?
Oh, wow.
OG. He's got to find originals.
I don't know if Greg can pull that one off.
Not a reproduction either. Not a reproduction.
Not one of the remakes, like the original 85, I think.
I think it was 85. Yeah, you'll have to send those.
The Air Jordans as opposed to the Air Jordans?
What?
No, that's no. If he sends him Air Jordans, if he does that, Arteta will put Matt Turner on the end of the bench on principle.
Yeah,
and we'll never see him again.
No, that's not happening. There might be some other limited editions he might be able to pull off with his friends at Nike, but yeah, I think it's going to take something to get Turner to play with the Revs the second half of the year. I mean, that's a big effect potentially on the U.S. men's national team, because you could be going into the World Cup with Zach Steffen backing up at Manchester City, Matt Turner backing up at Arsenal, Ethan Horvath backing up at Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
And it's just not the same. It's just not. It's great moves for the players. It's great situations for the players to get paid good bit of money, beat a big club, get some games, get great training. All those things are great. But for the U.S. men's national team in a World Cup year, having your three top goalkeepers not playing consistently is a problem for Greg Berhalter. We saw it with Zach Steffen in qualifiers last fall, where timing gets off, rhythm gets off, mistakes happen. That's a problem. And we'll see how Greg Berhalter and Mikel Arteta and Matt Turner all try to solve it. 6-month loan. I mean, go over there for the preseason and see where things stand, but I don't think he's going to be the starter, and he needs to be playing going into the World Cup in such a big way.
Mm-hmm. Needs to be playing, exclamation point after each and every one of those words. He's your number one guy. Sitting on a bench is not going to help you when you're chasing a World Cup bid. Not happening.
Jarrett, what's your score prediction for Aberdeen and Celtic? Quickly.
3-1.
It's at Aberdeen. They're hosting. Yeah, it's going to be tough. Is it a game though where
you picked the wrong time to play Celtic? Celtic's feeling really froggy.
Is it a game where maybe it's one of those that you can build momentum even without a win? I think the performance has to be there for Aberdeen.
The second half's going to be key.
Yeah,
the second half's got to be key. Like, Celtic's going to come out and they are going to throw haymakers at you. The last two games, they have put up 3 goals in the first half. They're going to come out and they are going to swing wild and swing big, and they're going to try and bury you. You have to go out and you have to keep your legs about you. And the second half is going to be big to build something off of, even if people are not going to want to hear that. And I don't blame them with the 3-1 loss. That's going to be hard to sell. But it's going to be important for them to come out and to at least make sure you end that game, however it starts, in that game on a high note going forward. Because, it's a tough matchup.
Yeah, it's bad timing for Aberdeen to draw this one right now, but they've got to get some momentum for the rest of the year. And really, I mean, you tell me how important the split is for them to be on the positive side of it rather than the bottom half of it.
Incredibly important. Like, if you don't want people yelling at Dave Cormack and like kicking his door, you need to be on the positive side of the split.
Yes,
there's that. All right, Jared.
Also, Snodgrass might be an option for them.
Yeah, that rumor's been popping around. We'll see if they can get that done. Jarrett, we'll see you in the second half of the show. Go watch the curling and enjoy it. We'll see you soon.
See ya.
All right, let's introduce our guest, first time on the morning show right now. We had to make the fancy intro for you, Poppy.
Love that. That was so nice. Hi, guys.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you both?
Doing good. finished, we finish with Scotland there because Paramount Plus, you guys are covering Scotland, very involved. You're covering everything these days. What has it been like with the move up to Paramount Plus for you?
First of all, can I just say your two backgrounds are absolutely amazing. When I came on, I felt like I was just staring, seeing what I could pick out from both of them.
Well, here, let me take down the sponsor billboard for a second just to show you the rest of it.
What is it like a competition? Are you having a competition with each other?
Basically, yeah.
I love that. Paramount Plus has been, it seems like every few weeks we have something else, that another soccer league that we've got, and it's been so good because not only have we got Champions League and Europa League and Europa Conference League, which by the way was absolute madness.
Yes.
Last season, as if it wasn't enough to keep up with all 16 games happening on a Europa League day. Then there was the Conference League, which was just craziness. And then to have the Women's League as well, the NWSL and the Scottish League, it's just, I feel like all I do is watch football. Honestly, that's just all. I never watch anything else.
I was going to ask, when it comes to all of your studies and study hall, how many different notebooks do you have when it comes to trying to get everything straight?
It's crazy, honestly. It's really, really crazy. But it's such a treat when two teams from the Champions League are playing against each other, or a team from the Champions League is playing against a team that's in the Europa League, because then you can kind of watch two teams at once, but it doesn't often happen like that. So at the weekend, it's a real juggle to get to at least watch, the top games that you want to see that weekend. And with Champions League, it makes it more difficult because some teams are in the Bundesliga, some teams are in, Ligue 1, but Serie A probably has been for me the most exciting league this season so far. And that's just it. The title race is just, so tight. But I will say, after we have a show or after we do something, I definitely then switch off and watch reality TV. So that's my time then to lay back and watch something that's not football related.
You got to switch off sometimes because it can just be overwhelming if you don't. Speaking of possibly overwhelming, what was it like to be in Italy last weekend?
Oh, it was incredible. It was, the build up to it was quite difficult, honestly, just because, as you guys know, the travel restrictions are changing every day. Yeah. And I think we took the entire crew. So the commentator, Matteo Bonetti and Drake Darrow were there, and all of the producers were with us. So there was a big group of us as well. So I think going there was definitely worrying because we were all thinking, what is anything going to change? And of course we went on February 1st. So the start of the new month always brings in new rules, which had its own challenges. But as soon as we touched down in Milan, it just was honestly, one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. And to get to be with the guys as well, and to get to have the lead up to the game was really special, because a lot of the time, like, as you know, you go to a hotel and then you go to the game and then you leave straight away. You don't really actually get to see much of the city. So it was really awesome that we could explore and do a lot of things in Milan and see the fans and do the proper build up to the game. And I think that gave the game so much more as well. And the San Siro itself, Mike Grella, who was with us, he is so funny and got such a dry sense of humor. But when we walked in there, he's always like very, calm and reserved, and not so much reserved, but just very calm and keeps his feelings well. But when we walked in, he was like, I'm actually really taken aback. I'm speechless for the first time in my life. And I was like, wow, Grella, it was really special just walking in, because we got to go in the night before, actually, just to do some sound checks. So you could hear a pin drop in the stadium. And I think that's always special, isn't it? Where you just so used to stadiums being absolutely roaring, and then to just feel the vastness of it on a misty Milan night when no one was in there. We were all a bit taken aback by it, which was pretty cool.
And I think a lot of folks may not necessarily understand these days all of the moving parts that it takes for a crew to go from Connecticut to Italy for a live broadcast, dealing with restrictions having to do with COVID, and each and every locale is different. How big of a juggle and how big of an army are we talking about here? And how many meetings are we talking about to make sure that everything was in place so the broadcast could be as flawless as it appeared?
It really was. It was, I think the people that work behind the scenes never get enough credit, because they really are the ones that make it all happen. And even the different groups of people that were involved, the people that were looking at the restrictions, the people that were booking the travel. I mean, there was just so many different people working together. And then the team of producers and graphics, and then we had some guys that were local on site, and so the language restrictions and the language barriers, and obviously a lot of our group could speak Italian, not me, but that was a challenge in itself as well, just bringing everybody together. But honestly, it was really eye-opening for me, because I hadn't ever seen that before, really. You know, especially when you travel, normally you just kind of show up and everything is laid out. So really getting to be a part of that and see the behind the scenes and see inside the broadcast truck, to see what a big production it was really special. And then honestly, even just us getting over there, I mean, I think there was maybe 15 of us. So there was a big group, but it was a really special group as well, and everybody is so lovely, and I think getting to experience it with the guys that we've been doing shows with in Stamford, and they've done some in New York as well, was such a unique experience to now get to be over in Italy, and it really worked out in our favor as well, because there was no NFL on that weekend. There was no big Premier League games on. I mean, that was definitely the biggest game of the weekend. And then to have the result that we had that then made everything so close, and there was late game drama with red cards and the change in the mood of the fans, because Inter were all over them in the first half, and then Milan ended up winning. So, I mean, it was craziness from start to finish. But then even the weather was very Milan feel. I didn't realize it was always such a thick fog there, and so to see that was quite special as well. So yes, the soccer gods were definitely looking over us that day, that's for sure.
Everything has grown and blown up for you so fast from the move to Paramount Plus. Do you get a chance to go back and talk to your friends in Charleston very much with the Battery?
Yes, I actually, one of my best friends from Charleston, it was her birthday yesterday, Amanda Gorman, and she does the tickets. And speaking of, the people behind the scenes, she is absolutely a Wonder Woman. Like, she does all of the tickets for everything, every event that was done at the Battery. And so I love speaking to her, and Mike Kelleher as well, who's always seems to be out and about, connecting with other football clubs. And I know he was in Venice and Scotland, so it's nice to catch up with him. But I'm always keeping my eye on them as well. I know last season they didn't have the season that they wanted to, but it feels like this off season, every time I open Twitter, there's another big name going to Charleston. So I'm definitely really excited to watch them this season, and I'm desperate to get back to go to a game. I really wanted to make one last season, but I didn't get the chance. And especially because travel was so difficult, even in the States, it was a nightmare, wasn't it? But this year I'll definitely go back, so it'll be really nice to see everyone.
So if we had told you 3 years ago that we would be having this conversation about you being at Paramount Plus, doing some anchor work at CBS Sports HQ, having to juggle all of these different things, what would you have told us then if we had told you that this was happening now?
I think I would. First of all, I would never have believed you, ever have believed you. I think I would just be speechless, honestly. It's really difficult to even put into words, because when when I was working at Charleston, I loved it so much, because it was just anything to work in football was such a blessing, and now to get to do some of these leagues as well, and to work at CBS, and honestly, even to try and get into American sports a bit more has been really unique. But if you had told me that I would be voicing over an NFL highlight on a Saturday night, I would just never have believed you, ever. And sometimes I still, even when I'm doing these highlights, especially for the NBA or stuff, I think this is just so bizarre.
I need your favorite Ian Joy story. He's one of my favorites to catch up with around the league. We see him in New York. Your favorite Ian Joy story?
Honestly, where to even start with Ian Joy? He is
That's about right.
He really is. He comes in every morning, banging on the walls, banging on the doors.
Yep.
He is just ready to go. You'd think he'd had about 15 Red Bulls before he comes in.
So he's a real decaf guy, basically, is what you're saying.
Do you know what? I don't actually think he drinks coffee, but he definitely loves a Red Bull, that's for sure. But he just has such a good energy about him. And I think, there's so many funny stories that he makes everybody laugh on such a daily basis. But I would say my favorite Ian Joy story is the times where the times that people don't see, the times where, especially when I first started, where he would just be so encouraging of me and really supportive, and I just so desperately needed that, because I felt, when I first arrived, I was so overwhelmed at the time, and Ian was actually living in the hotel, as was I, because he'd come over from California. And so that 3 weeks that we spent in the hotel, and even now, just having someone like Ian that you really can count on and that you trust and that's always there for you, I think that's really, really special. And again, there's so many funny stories that he has everybody in stitches on a daily basis. But I think probably my favorites are probably the bits that people don't see, where he can be really, when you're talking to him one-on-one, you just feel like he is the most lovely, trustworthy person in the whole entire world.
What has been the hardest part of this transition for you? Because you come into Paramount Plus right as they're taking off and it's exploding and they're getting all the rights of basically everything short of Antarctic soccer league material. What has been the hardest transition? Has it been having to juggle all of the other domestic sports with your time at CBS Sports HQ and learning that in addition to everything that you know cold about the sport of soccer? What's been the hardest part of this?
I think, the hardest part has been, it's almost been different phases of hard. When I first got there, it was very overwhelming because, like I said, we were in the hotel for 3 weeks and it was World Cup style to finish out the Europa League and the Champions League. So we had, I think, 1 day off in 3 weeks. So I'd never even stepped foot in the studio before my first day hosting there. So I was just like, whoa, like there's so many teams, there's so much to get used to with the studio. We've got so many guests on. And then I think as that settled in and I moved up here, it got easier because then I got into a bit more of a rhythm and I was living here and I was really familiar then with everyone. And then it was almost like the heart, it was different phases of challenges. And because then I started doing the other sports, which brought on, you always feel like, I'm familiar with the NBA and the NFL. And then you sit down and realize you're absolutely not, and you've got no idea. So just having to get used to that very quickly was definitely a challenge. And I would say the betting, that was another thing that I think we do the betting so differently in England. Even the way that we would phrase it and the money, on the money side of things, like 10-1, and here it's different. So that was strange as well. So I think there's been a lot of little things along the way where I recognize, this is different, one, to what I'm used to in general sports wise and maybe what I've been used to in England. But I will say the guys at HQ, because we work with them obviously during soccer, so they have really took me under their wing when it comes to American sports, and even writing the highlights, they say they make it very poppy friendly. So, and they put some fun things in there as well. And sometimes I'm looking at them thinking, I hope they do really call this player this, because here I am saying it, But it's fantastic because they are such good guys there, and they make it so much fun. And I think that's the thing that I've tried to embrace the most since, in these last few months, is because we have so many amazing people that come on as well to do the betting insights, and they've got so much knowledge. So I used to feel like it was all on me to almost tell the story, whereas now I try to really think it's not about what I know, even though I can, add to what they're saying. It's really more so setting them up so they can shine.
The gambling side of it's so interesting right now with covering sports, because, growing up in this country, we didn't talk about it, and in terms of your sports coverage, your local coverage, your national coverage, you didn't talk about it. Like, they tried a little bit in the 80s with the NFL, with CBS, and then they got away from it because it just got too controversial. But now it feels like the way any game will be covered in the future is including that angle in it. And you guys have been at the forefront of it.
Yeah, it's been really, really unique, honestly, to see how much it's evolved and how much we're involved with it. And even, I have to give Jimmy Conrad a shout out because honestly, he just wears so many hats. And one of his hats is he's a wagering expert. And so on Champions League days, I mean, how difficult it is to bet a Champions League match because you just feel like anything can happen, especially in the group stage. So he always picks out his favorites, and we always give him a hard time. So we're like, Jimmy, you always sit on the fence. He always has his parlay, and it's his 3 certainties in life: death, taxes, Bayern Munich to win, and Robert Lewandowski to score. That's always one if Bayern Munich's playing, which always seems to hit, honestly.
That's a safe one.
Yeah, exactly. So that is so good because we love to we keep track of his bets, and if he's had a great day, we're all there's confetti popping up on the screen. We're like, Jimmy, how many did you get right today? So that he's actually so good at the betting side of it. And I think he really enjoys doing it as well. It's kind of a different world. And, it almost adds something to the game as well, because a lot of the guys that work at CBS, they are very into the betting, and some of them are new soccer fans. So when we had the group stage of the Champions League, they all got behind Sheriff and they were rooting for Sheriff. And Jimmy said on a show, actually, we were talking about Real Madrid against Sheriff, and he said, Real Madrid, Sheriff have got absolutely no chance, So all the guys put money on Sheriff, and then of course they won. They won a couple. I'm not sure of the exact amount, but it was 1,000, I would say, on betting Sheriff. And so everyone loves to get involved with Jimmy in that. And in fact, another funny Ian and Jimmy story, I think it was last year, Dortmund and Sevilla were playing against each other, and Jimmy had picked Sevilla to win, and I think he'd chosen a low-scoring affair, and Ian said, Jimmy, I don't agree. I think we're going to see a high-scoring affair. I'm going to go Dortmund 4-3 Sevilla. And Jimmy jumped back in and said, honestly, Ian, if that hits, we'll all go to Vegas. There's just no way. So they were having a big back and forth. And then, as it would be, it was 4-3. So we came on to start the show, and those two were just going back and forth. Ian was looking at flights to Vegas.
Getting the exacta. Yeah. We talked about your time going from Charleston Battery to where you are now up there in Connecticut for CBS Sports. What a lot of folks may not necessarily remember or just even flat out know is that you came over here to play soccer over at the University of South Carolina, Beaufort, and you were a Shark before you got with the Charleston Battery. So for those not familiar with your back story, how did you end up coming across the pond here to play at USCB before you got involved with what you're doing now?
Well, some of my teammates at Lincoln City came out to the States to play, and they actually went to Oklahoma, and I really wanted to go to Oklahoma too. I thought, that sounds great. I want to go to America, and I would love to go to Oklahoma. But I was a few years younger than them at the time, so I had to finish school, and by the time I'd finished school in the UK, they had already left. I think one of them had transferred, and the other one had come home, I think, or maybe gone to a different school. And so I went through the same agency that they went through, and that's how I found USCB. And that was another thing that kind of happened very, very quickly. I felt like I'd started the process, and then before I knew it, I was living in America, in South Carolina. And then I actually saw Danielle, who was at Oklahoma years later. Her school that she is a coach at played against the college I was at, and she had the strongest American accent. And I said, I can't believe how American you are. And she said, there's no one English in Oklahoma. She said, I lost it straight away. And I was blown away because it was very American. I honestly, if I had heard her, I would have never said that was her. So it was really great to see.
We could keep you all day and tell stories, but I know you have some things to do. I want to leave you with this. A lot of people probably come to all of us and ask for advice, ask for kind of how you get into this. What's something that you've learned through your journey that you would pass on to somebody on the way up now?
It's a really good one because it is, a lot of the time when I was even starting and before I even started at the Battery, it's really difficult, isn't it? It's hard to find find places that one have openings, and then two that they're looking for someone like you. It really is a difficult industry. So I would say be willing to try anything is probably the biggest thing that I would say, because even when I was at Charleston, I would never have thought I would do a commentary, but really it was the commentary that then opened a few more doors for me to do some more freelance stuff. So I think my dad always used to say, cast your net wide and you might catch one. And I always used to roll my eyes when he said that. So I was like, oh, here we go again. It really did stick in the end, because I thought, if you are open to a lot of things and willing to try and to just give it a go, really, then it might lead you to where you actually want to be, but in a different route. And I think that's what's so hard about broadcasting, is because if you are in a different field, it's more so you can plan out a path, whereas here it's so zigzag to get there or to get to where you want to be. And then also I would say, it sounds so cliche, but I think just really enjoying what you do, because I remember even being in Charleston and on a game day on Saturdays, I would just think, how lucky am I to be able to watch this game tonight and to call this work, and everybody would be buzzing about the score or maybe the opposite. But I think just working in sports is so special, isn't it? And sometimes you just forget how lucky we are to be able to just get to enjoy sports and call it work as well. So I would definitely say those, but yeah, being open to try anything and everything would definitely be the biggest one for sure.
Poppy, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it. Know you're incredibly busy right now. But thanks for dropping in. Don't be a stranger, okay?
No, I actually just said to John last night, I said, I can't believe it's been so long since we've caught up. I used to love our weekly catch-ups when I was in Charleston, and even with the player interview, and then I would go on and
resurrect the P block. That's what you're looking for.
You guys are doing such a fantastic job, and I love to see how much the show has grown and how much you're doing as well. And I always keep my eye on Atlanta United, so it's really special to see just everything that you're doing as well for football in the US. And it's fantastic to watch. By the way, how do you feel about the US men's national team? How are we feeling about where they're at qualifying?
Okay, not great, but okay. I wish they had been able to find something in Canada, but okay. You've got a home game. You win that, I think you're good in this last group. I don't want to go to Costa Rica and need a result. That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah. What about you, John?
Same. I would have liked to have gotten a point in Canada, but I think that with Mexico being not 100% right now, I think you can get a point out of Azteca. But the biggest thing is that home match in Orlando, the middle game in that last window. That's where you get your 3. Then I think you'll be okay.
Do you think it could come down to that last game in Costa Rica?
I know. Not.
Let's not even think about it, actually.
Yeah, blocking that out.
Yeah, I'm terrified of that possibility. Poppy, now I'm going to have nightmares. Thank you.
Well, one thing that I have slightly enjoyed on our Italian show is the amount of times that the Italian guys on air would bring up the Euros. When we first started, it would just constantly be about the Euros. Who won the Euros? Who did this? Who did that? Who scored in the Euros again? It was just constant. So now Italy are now going through the playoff process. So the tables have turned on that one. But for the US, I think they're going to be fine too. But it's been an interesting qualification process, hasn't it? It always is through CONCACAF. But I feel like especially this time around, it's very unique.
Yeah. With Canada's emergence, it's been fascinating. It's been a lot of fun. I'm glad that you guys picked up all of the other games outside of the U.S. home games, because it's been so much easier to cover and follow.
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic. They've done a really great job as well with the studio in New York with Kate and Clint and Charlie and everyone. So it's I honestly, it's been probably one of the highlights of this year, is just getting to follow the US so closely through this process, because I think with the travel and with the 3-game windows, it's been really unique. So my dog's just come in. Here's my dog. She's over from England. She's actually was visiting here in the States, and then I ended up going to Milan, so they were here and I was in Europe, which was very weird.
Oh man! See, this is you open another window of conversation, and we know that you've got things to do. It just gives us the chance to sit there and invite you back for another P block.
Yes, I would love that. Honestly, it's been so nice to catch up with you guys.
We'll find some time to get you back on. Poppy, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Definitely. I'll see you all both soon, and yes, I'll be back whenever you'll have me. I'll be back.
Excellent, Poppy.
Thanks,
thank
Poppy.
you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Good.
Poppy Miller, make sure you're following her _Poppy Miller on Twitter. We got a little bit of this just to have some fun this morning. Fabrizio Romano tweeting, Atlanta United have completed Thiago Almada deal as expected. Paperwork's finally signed, done deal. Official statement expected in the coming hours. Here we go, confirmed. Top talent from Vélez now joining MLS. Really interesting move. Not really much of a secret, not really much of a shock here because this has been talked about since last summer. Mm-hmm. And once the news started to come out last week, it became kind of obvious that this is the direction that things were headed in. Almada, as Tom Robinson told us not that long ago, is just one of those very, very special talents that is on the fringe of the Argentine senior national team. Player that maybe a few years ago, if the markets hadn't been affected by COVID, maybe Thiago Almada is going to Europe for 25, 30 million to a Spanish club, to an Italian club. Things are a little different, and those deals didn't materialize. There was talk about Marseille at different points. That never really came to fruition, and Thiago Almada, is coming to Atlanta United, and he's just one of those guys that when you have the opportunity to add him to the league, like Fabrizio says, really interesting move. That's been the comment from a lot of people in South America. This is not Pity Martinez. This is not Ezequiel Barco. If you're looking for a touchstone for Atlanta United, it's not really like either one. Ezequiel Barco was emerging, and he had played a very important role for Independiente in winning the Copa Sudamericana. But he had 25, 30 games under his belt, maybe a little bit more when you include all competitions. But he was still on the rise, and we saw that it was an adjustment period for him because he was so young when he came here with the expectations because of the transfer fee. Pity Martinez had just won everything with River, with the Copa Libertadores, and doing it in Madrid and scoring a legendary goal that people recreate every year when it comes to that anniversary. Pity Martinez came in with a different kind of expectation, a different point in his career. Almada is past where Barco was when he arrived. He is not somebody who has won everything like Pity, but he's seen as the guy who can be that young player out of Argentina who developed in the local leagues and then turns into a stalwart for the Argentine national team. I don't know how long his time in Atlanta will be. If he is as good as people say, it might not be very long, but it might be incredibly special because you don't get a chance to see these kinds of players make this journey to MLS every day. And Almada is that kind of a special player. So will he come to Atlanta and join the team when they get back from Guadalajara? Will he go to Guadalajara? Will he potentially factor into things in the games on Sunday? We don't know. We don't really know timelines yet at this point. I don't know where everything stands with all. I don't know where his fitness is right now because he was part of Vélez's training early on. I don't know how long he trained. I mean, I'm sure as a professional, he's staying in shape. He's working out. He's not going to be, coming from the beach. But is he match fit? Is he able to factor into something Sunday? Does he need a little more time to then try to factor in Birmingham? Or is his Atlanta United debut, first time in the shirt, is that going to be in the home opener? Is he ready to start the home opener? There's a lot of questions. But to add him to what Atlanta United has, as we've talked about lineup possibilities, he's a special one. And he gives them a lot of flexibility in what the attacking four looks like. I think he'll be central, but the way Gonzalo Pineda wants to play it, it might be better for him to be on the flank cutting in and impacting the game there. We're going to talk more about this with Mike Conti here in just a bit. But before we do, John, please tell us a little bit about our friends at Eliminize.
I can certainly do that as we try to restore our billboard behind us, and we do that slightly. The Lemonize service, proud sponsor of Everything SDH, QR code over my left shoulder. For those of you watching on Twitch, for odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. And it is a Lemonize service, deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors like pits, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use the Lemonize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes and facilities that much faster. It's a turnkey process that makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers, kind of the environment. So it's a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue, different than your favorite masking agent that you have underneath the sink in your kitchen or any sink that you may have in the house. It's a proven scientific formula to destroy odors down to the molecule. Pricing is easy, 2 ways, parts per million or cubic feet, to come up with a solution that is best for you. Offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions about Eliminize service, frequently asked or otherwise, go to the website, eliminize.com. Go ahead and put /Atlanta after eliminize.com so they know what part of the world that you are talking to them from. Eliminize, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta. Eliminize service for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Eliminize service, proud sponsors of Everything SDH.
Hello?
There you are.
Morning.
I hear a weird echo. Do I sound okay? Do I sound audible?
okay? You sound good now.
Okay.
Hello. How are you?
How are we doing?
Good.
Well, we're off to a flying start with this segment. I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting some incoming information. There will be breaking news during this segment.
Okay, good. Well, Fabrizio Romano is already tweeting about it, so it's kind of broken.
Yeah, so I mean, it's gonna happen while we're on the air. So I'm assuming we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, look, Fabrizio Romano's tweeted that the deal's done with Thiago Almada. Yeah. Official statement expected in the coming hours. So
I think maybe our singular is more correct. I hope I'm not upsetting anyone by saying that, but I think we all know what's coming. So I might have to, if you guys don't mind, I might have to break our connection maybe in like 20 or so minutes today. But yeah, I mean, look. Now here's the thing. It sounds like he's in Atlanta. I don't know if they're going to take the time to send him to Mexico or if he's just going to meet up with everyone when they come back on Sunday.
Right.
I do know that the team is coming back Sunday afternoon. They're going to play their 2 friendlies on Sunday, and then they're going to fly right back. They're hoping to get back in time for the Super Bowl. So that's kind of the schedule they're on. So will we see him Sunday? I don't think – I mean, I'd be surprised. Never say never. But it would seem more likely to me that if you're heading to Birmingham next Sunday, you might be in for maybe the first look of Thiago Almada, perhaps.
Perhaps, very possible. It might be the home opener where he puts on the Atlanta shirt for the first time in a match. It's a fascinating deal because, as we were talking about before you came on, he's not where Barco was when he came. He's older than that. He's more established. He's went further than that in terms of like the national team picture and those kinds of things. He's not Pity Martinez when he came because Pity, had won Libertadores. He had won South American Player of the Year. He was older and maybe more established. You're getting a guy who people expect out of South America to be one of the best young players in the world. You're getting that kind of a player to come to Atlanta. He might not be here very long because if he's as good as they say, you might have big clubs calling pretty quickly, but it's special to have somebody like that in an Atlanta United kit.
No, it is. It really, and it's good for the league too. I mean, you're bringing in I think the league just in general has had a very good couple months when you talk about the quality of players that are coming into the league. We've talked a lot about Insigne over the last couple months. This is another one that's, it probably doesn't reach the same font size in the headline because Insigne is in his prime player in Italy right now, who's, playing for their national team and everything, but Almada is a big deal, and he should elevate the level of play in this league. I think what's going to be really fascinating now, guys, over the next 2.5 weeks, really, is where does Pineda slot him in? How does he gel? How fluid is his role going to be? Is it going to be more rigid? I would lean more towards fluid than rigid under Pineda as opposed to maybe a Heinze. But when Joseph is hunched over the ball at Mercedes-Benz Stadium 2 weeks from Sunday, where is Almada standing? First of all, is he on the pitch or is he on the bench? And then where's he lined up? Is he an attacking midfielder? Is he going to play out closer to the flank? Is it going to be a little more dynamic where he does both? I don't know. But I'll be really, really curious to see how quickly he can blend in from a chemistry standpoint. I'm not worried about the fitness at all. Not whatsoever. Because he's been training. With Les.
I think the question for me is not so much like he's not starting from zero. We know that. But is he ready to go 60? Is he ready to go 90? That kind of level of fitness. Where is it? It might take him a week or two. And it's not going to be a full preseason that he's going to need. He's not going to factor in for a month. It's not anything like that. But he might not be 90 minutes match sharp, match fit on day one. He might need a little bit of time there. And that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. Guys, with you, I really hate to do this. I apologize. Can I step away just for a minute? Just for 1 quick minute, and I'll be right back with you. Just
stay,
one quick minute.
Okay, Mike, stay connected with us.
I am. Yeah,
I'm going to send you to the backstage area. You can go back to the green room.
Wow, we can do that now. That's amazing. Okay, I promise I'm only getting a quick cup of coffee in the green room. I'll be right back. I am so sorry. Be right back.
Mike is going to the green room. We'll bring him back here in just a bit. Look, this is going to be coming pretty soon with an official announcement. Romano is, usually right out ahead of it when it's going to be dropped. I think there's some things that, need to be talked about here, and we'll talk about it before we bring Mike back really quick. The timing, as we said earlier, with how this announcement got done and when it got done, and why Atlanta United didn't purchase him before versus doing an exclusive option is really important. And look, Darren Eales has talked about it. He's talked about it with us. He's talked about it with everybody about the due diligence process, the work behind the scenes involving people who do this sort of thing with the Atlanta Falcons, getting to maybe another level of due diligence because of the situation that Thiago Almada was wrapped up in. But they didn't do the deal until the prosecutor's office in Argentina. It's something they call archiving the investigation. It's something they do before they formally close an investigation. When that announcement came last week, that is when timeline, this deal gets done. If that doesn't happen, this probably doesn't happen to the point that in Argentina, there were rumors of Boca Juniors making calls to Vélez and saying, hey, we'll take him on a 6-month loan. They couldn't purchase him because of the exclusive purchase option that Atlanta United had. But if he wasn't going to come to Atlanta in the spring, and again, to the point that Boca was making calls and reportedly making offers, we know how these things can go in Argentina, but you pass that. This thing is being archived, which is just terminology used in Argentine justice system. Wasn't arrested. He wasn't charged. No charges filed. The archiving of the investigation. That's how this goes when, it's done. So the story behind it, if you followed all of it and not just kind of picked and choose which headlines, it has been very inconsistent. It's been very hard to follow. And that it's not a cut and dried situation in any form, because otherwise there would have been charges. But it's been very hard to follow because stories have shifted. Different people have been involved in different ways. But at this point, you've done the due diligence. You did the option to let everything work itself out, run its course. And now that has happened, the player's going to come to Atlanta. If that had not happened, and again, with Boca kind of sniffing around and all that, checking out if they can get him or not, If that hadn't happened, he might have been playing for Boca this spring until something like that happened. And this has been going on for over a year. This isn't a case that happened a few months ago and then boom, it's done. And this has been lingering for a while because of, I think, some of the story shifting, some of the complications, some of those things. So it's been a very weird situation. But now that he is not going to be charged in Argentina, the purchase option, reportedly, according to Fabrizio Romano right now, has been triggered, and he is in Atlanta. Let's bring Mike back into this. What's up, Mike?
I don't get an intro this time?
No, you already blew it out.
Yeah, sorry about that. If this is the most poorly kept secret in the world, because I'm going in to tell the producers, like, hey, this is how this is going to go down. They're like, oh, we already know.
The Romano tweet.
How do you guys find? Well, they don't follow Fabrizio Romano, but they do follow Joe Patrick, and
yes.
I think that's where they got it. So I'm going to have to leave again in probably about 10, 15 minutes to inform the radio listeners of Atlanta what we're already talking about. And look, I know I'm getting in on the back end of what you're talking about, so I hope I'm not repeating anything.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
But it's my understanding that his involvement in this case is archived, and that the victim did not appeal. Okay, so when you get archived, the victim has the opportunity to appeal, but the victim did not appeal in this case. Look, Almada, and I get it, and I understand the concern, and I'm looking at everything on the Twitch pitch, and I get it, and I can't sit here and tell people how they're supposed to feel, but the facts are that he was never charged, he was never arrested, he wasn't even brought in for interrogation. So his involvement in the case has been archived. The victim could appeal that, and the victim opted not to. So believe me when I say, and Jason, you know this too, that extreme due diligence was done in this case.
Yeah.
Extreme due diligence, and not just by the club. Major League, remember, Almada is signing with Major League Soccer. Mm-hmm. He's not necessarily signing specific to Atlanta United. So there has been a tremendous amount of due diligence done here. And it's up to you to make your value judgments based on those facts. But those are the facts as I have been kind of brought up to speed on this by a source of mine today. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play. I do understand what's out there, and I get it. But I'll go back to something I told you guys last week. From what I know about Arthur Blank, and I think we've come to know him pretty well over the last 5-6 years,
yep.
I don't see Arthur Blank bringing in anyone into his organization where there would be substantial questions about his character that would be unanswered.
I think the way the deal was structured shows that. Yeah. And I think that's a really important element of this. They didn't do a transfer and then sit on it. They did an exclusive option. So they protected their interest as a soccer club, first off, because he's an incredibly talented player. If you don't put down an exclusive option, somebody else is going to come in and buy him. You're not going to bring him into Atlanta, a team that you want to bring him into because of how good he is on the field. So you do the exclusive option. You don't do the transfer then because of this process, and you want to get through the process until you do the transfer. The process finished, the transfer is going to be completed. That was always the way this lined up. Again, that's why it was so important. And I think a lot of people kind of brushed it off as club speak, official speak, whatever. When it was announced on the Vela side, like, oh, it's a done deal, he's going, yada, yada, yada. And Atlanta United was like, no, it's an exclusive option. We don't have him yet. It's an exclusive option because they wanted this to play out, because they wanted to be sure that he is the kind of guy they want to bring in. And you're right. Arthur Blank's not going to make a move if there's a question.
Yeah. By the way, according to Wikipedia, he's already on the team and has been assigned jersey number 8.
Yeah, these things happen.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, it would make sense.
The bastion of journalistic integrity. But
you never know. You never know. Look, bottom line, I mean, I don't want to harp on this too much. I really am looking forward to seeing him play for Atlanta United. Mm-hmm. May his impact be as large as a Miguel Almiron. or a Pity Martinez or an Ezequiel Barco. I hope that's going to be the case, or that it might even be higher. He has a very, very intriguing, exciting pedigree. And fortunately, maybe if there's a benefit to the extra long nature of this process playing out, it allows for additional scouting and maybe additional thought on how he's going to fit in here. So I'm really, really eager to see him play. This is frankly, guys, this is one of the biggest signings in club history.
It's one of the biggest signings in MLS history.
That as well, yeah. And I'll be curious. I don't know. Have we seen a firm number on this and where it could potentially rank? I have not. I don't know if you have.
No, it seems like it's somewhere in the Barco ballpark in the 15, 16 million range. You know how these things go out of Argentina and how they get reported. Numbers will fluctuate.
Let's say that's true, by the way.
Yeah.
My goodness. Okay, so in the 2018 offseason, Atlanta United is paying an 8-figure fee to bring in a player.
Right.
In the 2019 offseason, Atlanta United is paying an 8-figure fee.
Even go back to the beginning, not just under 8 figures. Miguel Almiron was in the 9 region. So to start things off, you had one right about 8 figures.
Yeah, exactly. And then in the 18 offseason, the 19 offseason, and now in the 22 offseason. Guys, this isn't normal for an MLS club. No, not in this country. For an MLS club to be paying 8-figure transfer fees multiple times in a 5 or a 6 year span of time. We are enormously fortunate here in Atlanta that there is an owner who's willing to dedicate these kinds of resources to making this club what it can potentially be and what it has been. This is, I hate to use this expression, it's a little cliche, but it's not normal. This is not normal. And we're really, really fortunate here that this is the case.
He's a creative player. And I think, the difference maybe with him and Barco and Pity, when we talk about those, we'll throw Miguel into this too. I think in terms of a natural playmaker, a natural creator, he is more of that mold than any of the others were. And we saw great, creation from Pity in terms of chances created, one of the highest in MLS in terms of shot creating actions in his time in the league. He's in the top 5. Ezequiel Barco last year, we saw all the chances he created. Miguel Almiron created chances, also scored goals. Almada is somebody who, from an assist perspective, a chance-created perspective, is going to flourish. And when you have a guy like Luis Araujo on one side, when you have Joseph Martinez up top, when you have Marcelino Moreno either to your left or inside of you, depending on where Almada's positioned, that's a lot of options for him to feed. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. So here we are, guys. I mean, now what's the next step in this offseason? Because now things have gotten very interesting on the Eric Lopez front. Maybe the Bonfield thing is back on.
Yep.
That opens up your U22 spot again. We know that Atlanta United, based on what Darren told us in Athens, probably had at least 1 or 2 more incomings. And here's one, and we'll see what the other might be. But this is just about to get wrapped up for the preseason, and we can really turn our attention now to February 27th. It's not, in fact, I was working on my Sporting Kansas City board yesterday. I mean, it's coming. It's going to be here. And I'm just envisioning again, wow. I mean, we have the potential of going to Birmingham, Alabama next Sunday in a 50,000 seat stadium and seeing one of the most intriguing young players in the world wear a red and black kit. And we're going to see in practice how he fits in with Araujo and hopefully Moreno if he's back healthy, and Joseph really quickly. And I can't wait to see it. It's so exciting. It's not unusual that it kind of came down to the wire like it did with Barco in 2018, to a lesser extent like it did with Pity in 2019. But remember that Atlanta United, for the most part, I mean, they certainly hit the ground running in 2018, despite that Houston loss, which, I think we've all scrubbed from our memories.
Yeah.
Took a little longer to get going in 2019, but you also had a managerial change. I mean, Atlanta United set up to really hit the ground running this year in the same way that they were kind of rolling in 2020 before Mr. COVID hit. And it's going to be a really exciting next 6 weeks with not only these preseason fixtures, but then 3 of your first 4 regular season games at home. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be a really, really exciting start to the season. And look, business is picking up for stoppage time for us at 2:00 today.
Yeah.
So we'll have just a few things to talk about.
Yeah, just a bit. Yeah, it's going to be. And look, again, I mean, a lot's going to be said about this today, and it's there's a lot of noise and a lot of chatter out there. But the fact is, Atlanta United is bringing in a really high-quality player, one of the biggest signings of the history of the club and the league. And I hope that doesn't get lost in the noise today. Plus, we've known for a long time this was coming.
And they followed the process to make sure it's the right kind of move to make with the issues that the noise is related to. Like that's the thing that I keep coming back to is, the talent on the field, forget it. We know there's nothing to talk about. But again, they didn't do the transfer until the process was sorted out. And that was how it had to go for doing the right thing. It just was. It's really, really tricky. And I think they did everything that they can possibly do in terms of due diligence and waiting for the process to finish until they made their move. And now it's done, and he is coming to Atlanta.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for bearing with me. I'm sorry, guys.
But you got to hang out. But you got to see the green room and get the either the Earl Grey tea or
the green room was out of donuts today. Like, just not a good green room situation. But yeah, we'll be back on at 2:00, and obviously keep following us on Twitter and stay tuned to 92.9 The Game. We'll talk about it a little bit here in the next 10 minutes.
I would expect so. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Guys. Take care.
Yep.
All right. We don't have an intro for this guy, but we'll bring him back in. What's up, Jared?
You do have. Well, you have one. You chose not to use it.
I didn't have it handy to play right then, so I just.
That's fair.
I mean, could do that.
There you go.
I liked my Hall of the Mountain King-esque, just ominous, almost like Grinch music that you played.
Yeah, next time I'll have it ready for you next time. It's
okay.
kind of hectic right now with teases being made on social media by clubs in the city and everything happening. So this is from a playing perspective. We've covered it. We've talked about it. I think from the off the field perspective, we've talked about it. I know that's not going to be enough for some people. I know that's going to be enough for some people. It's a process where, these things do get complicated in the world we're in today, where everything is known about everybody in these kind of moves. But, Jarrett, we've talked about how the timing of all of this, in my opinion, shows that the due diligence that was followed through, you're talking about AMBSE as an entity. You're talking about Arthur Blank's reputation. You're talking about not making the purchase. You do the purchase option. Then when everything is filled out, then everything's done, completed. Then you do the transfer. And after that announcement last week, then you get this. It does follow the timeline of making sure that this is the right move to make with that situation in mind. And they waited. And once it was done, they made the move.
Yeah, and John and I talked about this last week, that Arthur Blank and company have a history of being very willing to give people chances who have been in the news for less than wonderful reasons. They frequently give them a very short leash, but he has been one to embrace the idea of giving people a chance to kind of rebuild and to not let anything within, as long as things are within reason with accusations. He's never really shied away with the Falcons, or I guess United now, of giving people opportunity to show their true selves in a positive way, I guess is the way I'm trying to phrase that.
But if that individual steps out of line,
it's a short leash.
A very short leash. When
it's a super short leash.
Comes to the second chances.
But I guess I'll rehash what I'd said before about this. Is there's nothing that he can do. There's nothing he can do in terms of like the legal situation here in America about that. The best advice I can give is just keep your head down, embrace the city, embrace the club, embrace everything, and embrace everyone, and go out there and perform and
just play.
Control what you can control, because it's going to be awkward at times, but you have to control what you can control. And you have to go out there and perform.
Yeah, that's ultimately that's what it's going to come down to, and that side of it. It's always a challenge for somebody moving to a new country and moving to a new situation, moving to a new team. He hasn't played with anybody here. He actually knew Barco pretty well from his time with the Argentine Olympic team. He played last summer with the Olympic team. And he's got to, integrate into the group. And that's going to be something that hopefully doesn't take a lot of time. But we've seen it turn out sometimes where it does. I hope he gets the opportunity to do that. And you're right. The best thing for him right now is to keep his head down, represent the club well, play, not worry about the noise, because, he's handled the noise in Argentina that he could handle. And now he's coming to a new place that I don't think all of the aspects of the story have really been talked about in any kind of detail in this country. There's elements, there's bits and pieces that are going. He can't control any of that. All he can do is play. All he can do is control the part on the field where he can perform well and represent the club well.
And I think that's the key here, is to just control what you can control. And it's what's in front of you. And what's in front of you is being that representative of Atlanta United on the field and off. That's what's in front of you right now. That's what you should do. Just, keep your head down, focus on all of that material, and then take it. And this is going to sound incredibly cliche, but it's a day at a time. Just sit there. You tackle this day, you go to the next. You tackle that day, you go to the next. And you just continue to build in this situation. Just once again, it's just keep your head down, do what's in front of you, do what's best, keep going forward.
Something that, Jarrett, we've talked about, and another, I think, bit of noise that's out there is the gesture Almada made with Velez after scoring a goal, if I remember correctly. That is in isolation a racially insensitive gesture that happened. I think the context is very important here. And honestly, it reminded me a lot of the Edinson Cavani issue in the UK on Instagram, where he referred to a friend of his in a playful way, not in a derogatory way, with a term that the FA said was insensitive, and he got suspended for it. The context of that was important, and I don't think it was taken into consideration. The context of this is also very important with Almada, because he wasn't doing the gesture in a mocking way towards anybody. It wasn't targeted at anybody. It's a gesture that wouldn't make sense to do here, because it was referring to Velez's club history and their success in Japan. And yes, in any culture, it's insensitive. In that culture, when you're growing up, you don't know the insensitivities of it. And that's the challenging thing here when you're talking about, I want to say he was a teenager or 20-year-old when that happened. It's a different place, a different time. I don't think there's any real risk of him doing that after a goal here, because there's no context to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, it makes sense. And I think that's and I think that's key in all of this, Jarrett, is understanding context when it is related to a particular situation. Yes, you can look at it one way and it means one thing, but then there's the added context of understanding it in that current situation. And Jarrett, I think that's where the key is with that here.
Yeah, but I would imagine that's a conversation you have before you start really exploring paperwork at this point of, hey, if you come here, hey, I think they don't fly here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is part of the process, and it's just part of, it's It's part of doing your due diligence. It's part of understanding other cultures, and it's part of understanding that, insensitivity is a cultural thing as well. That people find some stuff insensitive. You do some stuff in some places, and it goes over like a lead balloon. Other places, just part of daily life, and it can get really subjective really fast.
Yeah.
That also fits into, like I said, you put your head down and you go produce, and you embrace the city and you embrace the fan base. And I think you'd be surprised how quickly things go well for you if you are Thiago Almada.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go into a new culture and embrace that culture, and it's something that he's going to have to learn. I mean, go back to Tito Villalba scoring a goal and doing the gun like celebration thing. He wasn't trying to offend anybody. He wasn't mocking anybody. He wasn't doing anything to be insensitive. It was an action that he shouldn't have done at that time, but it wasn't intended to hurt people. And I think that's the number one thing about that specific situation with Almada is he wasn't doing it at anybody. It wasn't to be done to mock anybody. It wasn't to be done to be insensitive to anybody. It's an insensitive gesture, but he wasn't being insensitive to anybody. If you can draw that difference and if I can make sense of what I'm trying to say, it's a different situation. That's an aspect of this. I think the biggest thing for a young, talented athlete, and this is universal to any sport, when they make a move like this, the pressure ramps up, the difficulty to adjust can ramp up. You're going from a country that you've spent your entire life in to a new place. Luckily, he's coming into a locker room with, I think, a lot of good leaders around him. Having a guy like Osvaldo Alonso, I think, is great to have if you're a young player trying to make that adjustment. Having a guy like Joseph Martinez is great to have in the situation. Having a guy like Alan Franco, I think, is great. Alan Franco is one of the big personalities in this dressing room, and he went through it last year with that transition coming to Atlanta, and he knows how difficult it can be. Those are guys who are going to have to, I think, step up and help bring Almada into the group and help him learn some of those things about being in a different culture, in a different country, and being smart about how he carries himself and representing the club. Those are all guys who take that badge really seriously. Osvaldo Alonso has always represented his clubs incredibly well as a leader and setting expectations. These are guys who I think are going to impress that upon Thiago Almada and help get the best out of him.
And I think having those older role models, I mean, in any situation, it's always important for the younger player to have those role models who either have experience under the particular team umbrella or club umbrella that we're talking about, or just in the location that you're in, and they can have the guidance that's there to help you out in these situations, because it's cultural and it's geographic and it's athletic, and having each one of these separate ideas and having a role model or an individual who's an elder can sit there and say, okay, here's what can happen here. Here's what works here. Here's how things are here. Here's how things are here in each of these three aspects that I'm talking about. I think that's key, because that helps you grow as an individual and it helps you grow as an athlete. And I think that those role models that are there for Gonzalo Pineda and Atlanta United are going to be integral in this process. They're going to be key to Thiago Almada's growth as a player here in the United States and as an individual going forward.
The intro video is out. It's official. He is going to wear number 8. And in the video, I don't have the sound playing, obviously, because we're doing a show, but I'm reading the captions of it. And he talks about coming from a neighborhood, Fuerte Apache, which is where Carlos Tevez is from. It's one of the hardest neighborhoods in Buenos Aires, one of the most difficult places to grow up. He talks about how he says, I'm from the land where you're born attached to the ball. I'm born in a place where your only option is to fall in love with the goal. From the depths of Fuerte Apache and from a very young age, I started to pave the pathway of my own story, everything in search of a dream. Thanks to that dream, I stood out and gave everything to L14, which is Vélez. And today that dream brings me to a city and a new club, to a new club, to which I'm going to give every bit. I come to keep dreaming. It's coming from that story just in and of itself. And maybe I'm a little sentimental about this because on my trip, I read the Guillaume Balage book about Diego Maradona. And Maradona came from a different neighborhood in Buenos Aires, a little more on the outskirts, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, he came from a house that when it rained hard, there was more water inside than out, according to Diego. It's a difficult life of survival at times. And to get to where these guys get to, whether you're talking about Tevez, whether you're talking about Maradona, whether you're talking about Almada, you're talking about a guy who's a survivor and a guy who's had to overcome obstacles because their life growing up was probably filled with them. And they've grown up, I think, in a very different life than I did, probably than most of us who are involved in the show, listening to the show, grew up in. And it's going to be a big adjustment. It's an adjustment for a guy like Almada to get into the first team at Vélez and to become a national team player at the youth level and to get into the mix with the national team and to star in Argentina. Like, that's a huge adjustment just for anybody when you become famous and you become a superstar and all that pressure starts to hit you and all those opportunities start to hit you and all those potential pitfalls start to come out in front of you. It's hugely difficult. And we've seen this in every sport where guys aren't able to make that jump, aren't able to make that step past that part of the journey. And it's very hard. And it's something that, I mean, I can't even begin to relate to. Just getting to a point where people know who you are and you don't know everybody that comes up to you is weird and difficult and hard to adjust to. I can't imagine being in this kind of situation where, every move, every walk down the street, every time he leaves his house, it's, everybody yelling, wanting a piece, wanting to yell at him, wanting to, praise him or yell at him in a derogatory way. I mean, it's so much of a different life. And to come from that background and be able to get past this first part of the journey and now start a new one where, this part of the journey for him is even more challenging in a lot of ways because he comes to Atlanta, he comes to the United States where, Atlanta United fans don't have the history of watching him grow up in the juniors at Vélez. He's not a homegrown. It's not, one of the guys that we've seen play with Atlanta United 2 and make the jump and now be a star where, at Vélez, he was beloved because he was one of them. He's coming in a role that he's never been in his life, where he's coming in now to be the superstar, not develop into one, but to be that guy and to feel that weight of expectation, the weight of that badge and that shirt and what Atlanta United wants to accomplish. Now, he'll relate to that because Vélez is a club that has ambition, and playing in the Argentina shirt carries a lot of weight. That's a very heavy badge, especially when you start to get compared to your Lionel Messi's and players like that. But he's coming into a place without that support system that he had at Vélez where he grew up, with family nearby, with all of that. It's a tough thing to do. And I hope that he can rise to that challenge because it is a challenge. The ability on the field, he has that. His ability can rise to that challenge. I hope as a person he can rise to that challenge. And I think Atlanta United as a club would do everything possible to learn everything about him to know that he can rise to that challenge as a person. And you don't invest what Atlanta United's going to invest in him from a transfer fee, from a salary, from those kinds of things, if you don't think that as a player and as a person, he's going to be able to meet that challenge and surpass it and help this club achieve its goals. And also, Thiago Almada can reach his goals because we know that individual players have goals. I think that is one aspect of this that has been incredibly unfair, is that we know players who come to MLS at a young age who are potential superstars and have the potential of being linked to your Manchester Cities, to your Barcelonas, to your Real Madrids, to your Milans, to your Juventus, to the biggest clubs in the world. If those clubs can come calling and you develop into that level of a player, you're going to go. And that's not a bad thing for Atlanta United. You want players with ambition, because if you don't have players who have personal ambition, you can't reach the club ambitions. You can't get to those levels where you're winning all those things. It's an aspect where I really don't think you make this move. And I think the way it played out with the timeline that we've talked about, don't think this move gets made with that level of investment if you're not sure that as a player, he's the guy, and as a person, he's the guy. I just don't think you make the deal knowing what we know about Arthur Blank, knowing what we know about Darren Eales, signing that kind of deal. You got to make sure that he can reach those levels and as much off the field as an individual, as a man, as on the field. And now it's going to be up to Thiago. Now he's going to be handed the opportunity to carry this club to really big heights. And he's got a lot of people to help him. He's got a lot of talented players around him to help him. It's not all on him. He's not coming in like Maradona did when he went to Napoli, where it was like, yeah, Diego, here's the ball, go do something, because we don't have anybody to help you. He's got Joseph. He's got Luis Araujo. He's got Marcelino. He's got guys at various levels of their career who can help him. And he's going to have to lean on that. But yeah, he's the guy who can put it over the top on the field, and he's got to do all the things off the field to reach that level of expectation to get there.
You mentioned the pressure that's attached, and there's always the financial component. Tom Bogert has come out with the list of most expensive transfers in league history. Almada's he has listed at $16 million, which is right there at the top.
It's where the reports have been.
Yeah. The $500,000 more than Pity Martinez. Ezequiel Barco is listed at 15. Brenner at FC Cincinnati, when he was picked up, was 13. Pizarro at Inter Miami was 12, as was Luis Araujo. So you're going to have that component attached to it as well. Thiago Almada, the most expensive transfer in league history, coming to town.
Yeah, I mean, just on the transfer side of it, Jarrett, you're talking about Atlanta United with 4 of the 6 most expensive transfers, according to these reports, and it feels pretty accurate, with Brenner and Pizarro being the other 2. I guess it just goes back to me that you don't make that level of an investment if you're not sure of the person you're dealing with.
Yeah, that's kind of where I settled in on it. Is you're doing a level of due diligence to make sure that you don't throw away $16 million. I mean, looking at it on a financial basis, you don't want to piss away $16 million. Also, I'd be interested to know the conversation that goes on with getting a visa approved.
That's a good point.
With outstanding charges.
Well, there's no, but that's the thing, is now there's nothing outstanding.
Yeah.
And then maybe that's part of it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to piss away $16 million. You're not going to throw money away. So if you're going to spend, hell, even $10 million, which we know some clubs, that's more than they're willing to spend usually. But if you're going to spend that much, you're going to make sure that you get it right. So you're going to do your due diligence, and now you've, like it or not, you've put it in his hands of, hey, you're here. We know you have this mindset of getting to Europe. That's fine. Don't be shy about it. Don't be coy about it. Miguel Almiron had the same thing. Ezequiel Barco had the same thing. You want to use Atlanta as your mercenary stop? That's fine by me. We were happy to add some trophies in the cabinet while you're here, if possible. But you come in and do your job now. Get some trophies, maybe get some personal hardware, and get your move to the next stop where you want to go. But at this point, it's in his hands. He has to go do it.
A couple of things on the official announcement side of it. He will be a designated player. Obviously, he'll occupy an international roster spot. Carlos Bocanegra said, after an extensive and in-depth due diligence process, we have exercised our exclusive option to permanently transfer in Thiago. He's a player we've been tracking for a long time, and he's shown that he's one of the best young players in South America over the past few seasons. We feel that his abilities fit well with the kind of attacking soccer that we want to play at Atlanta United, and we're confident that he will be able to play at a high level in Major League Soccer. So he is a designated player. That's an important element here. We talked about how maybe there were ways around it, but his salary is going to push it, obviously, above the U22 initiative. Today at 1:30, Darren Eales, Carlos Bocanegra, Gonzalo Pineda are going to speak to the media. That is going to be a virtual press conference. I believe everybody from that trio is still down in Guadalajara, but that's going to be a virtual press conference at 1:30 today. So there will be quotes from everybody who is following that. We'll follow up on it at 2:00 with stoppage time. Stoppage time might get pushed back a little bit if that's still going on, and we need to continue to gather quotes, clips, et cetera, et cetera. So stoppage time will be after that press conference is my assumption. Stay tuned to my Twitter, to Mike Conti's Twitter, Mike Conti 99, for any scheduling updates. But 1:30, Darren, Carlos, and Gonzalo are speaking to the media about this transfer. The reports out of Argentina, just, kind of getting a gauge of the reaction. I've shared a little bit on social media. There's a bunch of other stories going on as the window for incoming players in Argentina is about to close tomorrow. Christian Pavone looks like he's going to Brazil, for example, is one. But a lot of people are, I think that going back to that Fabrizio Romano comment about it like interesting in terms of on the field. It's a situation where this is a player, as we said before, who in previous markets might not make this jump to MLS. He might not be available to an MLS club because he might be going directly to Europe. He's a player who has the potential of being on the Argentine national team for the World Cup later this year. Represented them at the Olympics, played very, very well at the Olympics. He's been in training camps with the senior national team, and he has that potential, if he has a big year, to go to Qatar with Argentina and play, not just be a young kid on the roster. He's got that kind of stature in terms of where he ranks among Argentine players. So this is on the field potentially the biggest incoming transfer out of South America for MLS. It's not a David Beckham move. It's not a Zlatan move. It's not a Chicharito move, because then you're factoring in the PR side of it, the Q rating side of it. It's not that, but on the field, a 20-year-old coming in who is, getting close to entering into his prime, who's already been mixing into the Argentine senior national team, one of the biggest teams in the world, who's been compared to some of the greatest players in the world. It's a big deal that a club like Atlanta United's able to get him. And, we've talked about the other side of it, which is a very important side of it. And I know that side's not going to go away, no matter what is said about that due diligence process, no matter what is said about the timeline of doing this, how everything syncs up the way we've talked about it. That's not going to go away. I hope that Almada can not just perform for the club, because obviously you want to win things. You want somebody like that to help you win things. I hope he can perform for himself to answer to some of that stuff. The legal case is played out. He's not being charged. He's got his visa. He's coming to the U.S. He's going to play. He's in a new place. He gets a chance to start anew. And he gets a chance to grow up, I think, in a very different atmosphere and environment than he grew up in as a kid in Fuerte Apache, and as a young adolescent turning into a young man at Vélez with a huge spotlight on him. He won't have that same stuff around him here. And I hope that he gets that opportunity to truly mature, because he's 20. He's not mature yet. He needs to reach that level of where he can be as a player. He has to. And I hope that Atlanta United can help that process. And I hope that this locker room and a guy like Gonzalo Pineda, who has, had the career that he had as a player and has been through some of these different aspects of just the difficulties of becoming a star. I hope that these are people that can help Thiago in that maturity process.
This is an opportunity, and it's an opportunity on multiple fronts for Thiago Almada as both an individual and as an athlete. And you have the opportunity, if you are number 8 for Atlanta United, to improve your status, improve your lot, be noticed on larger fronts going forward, to take advantage of this situation. And to take advantage of this opportunity, you have to grow up. And it's not just growing up about what we talked about off the field, but it's growing up and maturing as that athlete. And so I'm looking forward to seeing where Thiago Almada takes advantage of this growth opportunity for himself, because if he sees what he can be down the line, whether it's the next stop professionally, national team, what have you, being here with Atlanta United and being here in Major League Soccer, which is something that we didn't say with any great regularity just a handful of years ago, to have an athlete this quality come in here, have these opportunities in front of him, and to have it happen with his base being Atlanta United, it can be a very special thing if you make those proper steps to continue to grow. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing the most in this, is the growth of Thiago Almada on multiple fronts, and the rest is up to him with the influence that he can have from those elders around him that I've talked about earlier on here in this segment. This is an opportunity for Thiago Almada. Now it's up to him to take advantage of it as best he can.
Jared?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said my piece on it. I don't know what else to add to it, man. This is an opportunity to come here and prove people wrong on a number of different fronts, and make your jump. You have to mature as a player, you have to mature as a person, and put yourself in good situations. And that's going to be important to his growth and to how this city embraces him or doesn't. A lot of this is going to be in his hands. So I look forward to seeing what he can do on the field, but I look forward to seeing what he does off the field in terms of, embracing Atlanta, embracing this fan base. Because it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough at times. It's not going to be a walk in the park, and it's going to take work on his part. And I look forward to seeing him put in that work. And then, like I said, hopefully it ends up with hardware for everybody, and he gets the opportunity to continue his career where he wants to go. I think he has been very much not shy about wanting to go to Europe. Okay, cool.
There's
Use
nothing
this as
wrong
your
with
launching
that.
pad.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying there is.
Right.
I'm not saying there is anything wrong with that. Miguel Almiron was like that. Ezequiel Barco was like that. Plenty of guys have come into MLS and they've been that mentality of, I'm just here to win some stuff, build my.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Start a Mario Kart race.
Yes.
Okay. Nice. I am fond of using Bowser in those personally.
Yes.
But I mean, I have no issue with if you want to come in here with that mentality of, being a mercenary, going to win some hardware and going to take the next step. Cool. You've got a unique situation ahead of you, kid. And it's going to take a lot of work on and off the field. And it's going to take some patience, and it's going to take some convincing for some people. So that's something that you're going to have to do as the player. A team can put out statements, they can talk about due diligence, and they can do due diligence, but it's going to take work from the player to get a lot of that done.
Yeah, I mean, it's the stuff about the ambition of the player. I don't think is even really valid here, because while I think MLS will be among the 5-6 biggest leagues in the world by the end of the next decade, there are people who question that, and it will not be, in my opinion, as big as England, Spain, Italy, Germany. For a player to have the ambition to play in one of the biggest leagues in the world and play with one of the biggest clubs in the world, when that time comes, if they get the opportunity, they should want that. If they don't have that ambition, I don't think they become the star that you want them to be here. I don't have a problem with that. Miguel Almiron was very clear in having that ambition. Pretty much every player who's come here from South America at a young age has had that ambition to be that player. So Almada having that ambition, that's a good thing. I don't have a problem with that. When that happens, who knows? That's going to be on him. I think that's going to be on the performances, because if he is as good as he can be on the field, and again, the off the field stuff absolutely factors into that. If he is the person that the club is believing he can be based off the investment in him and based off the process that has carried out, then he will be a player who plays in one of the biggest clubs in the world. And he will do that after having success in Atlanta to get there. And that is the step that a lot of players are going to start to follow out of South America, whether it's Atlanta or a different club in MLS, to have that ability to come here and be in a league that is frankly more well-known worldwide than the Argentine Primera, than the Liga de Profesional, than other leagues in South America than Liga MX. You know, there's just more coverage of MLS worldwide. There's more opportunity to watch those games. That's a big deal. And if he can do that and break into the senior national team alongside of doing what he can do here in Atlanta, then we're having a completely different conversation. There are, I guess, just to reiterate, I've seen a few tweets from national people saying that the investigation is still ongoing. It's not. That is incorrect, and that needs to be understood. Again, the timing that we've talked about of this process with doing an exclusive option while the process is being carried out. The process came to a conclusion. It culminated in an order by the prosecutor's office to archive the investigation. Again, this is Argentine legal stuff that's being translated, but that is a standard procedure prior to the formal closing of an investigation. Once that was done, then you could do the transfer if you were happy with everything else. But they were not going to do the transfer until that was done. And that was done last week. So when it's said that he is still under investigation, that is incorrect. And I don't think the transfer happens if he's still under investigation, to the point that Boca was trying to get him if he was still under investigation. Boca was trying to bring him in this season on loan from Vélez, knowing that Atlanta had that option. They did not do that because he's coming to Atlanta. So you don't get that done. And the results are different. If it's not archived, if there is a charge, Atlanta wouldn't have done the option. They would not have exercised it. It's pretty easy to follow. So again, if you see reporting that he is still under investigation, he doesn't get transferred if he's still under investigation. He doesn't get transferred if he's charged. That doesn't happen. He wasn't charged. There wasn't an appeal of the lack of a charge. There's not much else that can be done here because the legal system played out in Argentina to the point that he was not seen as somebody who should be charged in a situation. So I don't know what else can be done in that aspect. And that's where this is going to get a bunch of questions, and we know that, and it's going to get a bunch of statements and responses, and we know that. And this is where, as an individual, as a person, Thiago Almada has to come to a new place, and he has to try to dispel through his actions representing the club, because anything he does represents the club. His actions on the field might not affect anybody in their attitudes about this, and there's nothing he can do because this was a legal situation that has now been archived, and he doesn't show up if it's not. They're talking on Teise right now about Boca trying to get him, and they couldn't because this was once, and that's what the media in Argentina has said when this was announced this morning, is once the charges were archived, once the investigation was archived, I think is the proper way to put it. Once that happened, he was coming to Atlanta. If that hadn't happened, then he wouldn't have been coming to Atlanta, and he might have gone to Boca or whatever else, depending on what Vélez wanted to do at that stage. But he couldn't have been sold anywhere else. It would have been a loan because Atlanta United had that option. Now, I don't know how long the option was. I don't know if it would have extended past this window that ends in May. I don't know if it would have extended into the next window. I don't know. Don't know what it cost. Don't know if it was a down payment on whatever the transfer fee ended up being. I don't know the mechanisms for that. But ultimately, if the investigation is not archived, he does not become an Atlanta United player. And that's the important element of this in saying when some national writers who cover MLS are saying that the investigation is ongoing, that is factually incorrect. It's legally incorrect. It's completely wrong. And that has to be understood here because it is a factor in people's opinions about this situation.
And that's one of the biggest reminders for me in all of this. And we've discussed AMBSE and Atlanta United and Arthur Blank and all of that as the lead in to this particular transaction. If this investigation was still ongoing, this transaction would not have happened. And so that to me is what you put in the big box here. It's like, if this was still going on, this transaction that we're talking about this hour would not have gone down with Atlanta United.
If the club didn't care, they would have done the transfer last summer. They would have done the transfer whenever this started. If they didn't care, they would have done this a long time ago. They obviously cared. He wasn't arrested. He wasn't charged. Again, when you're talking about factual information here, he wasn't. He was considered a person of interest. Stories changed multiple times. It was very difficult to understand what happened in the incident. But he was not arrested or charged. He wasn't called in for interrogation even. And ultimately, his role with all of it is being archived. He's not going to be charged. So I don't know what else he can do specifically to answer that. And the club doesn't do the deal if he's charged. Like, I think it's really that simple, is out of the caution and out of wanting to make sure that this is the right move, you do the option. And when it is the right move because he isn't charged and you've done your due diligence and you're comfortable with where things stand, then you exercise the option. If they didn't care, they would have transferred him a long time ago. They would have brought him in a long time ago. They would have bought his rights a long time ago. Maybe he didn't play. Maybe he's still under investigation. Maybe he can't leave the country, whatever. Don't know any of that. I don't know the Argentine legal system aspect of that. I understand the archived situation, and that means he's not going to be charged. This is closing the investigation when it comes to Thiago Almada. So I don't know what else the club is supposed to do in that situation, but that's where it stands. That's where it stands. He is not under investigation further. He wasn't arrested. He wasn't charged. These are important aspects of it that I think have been lost in the conversation a little bit. That's not going to be enough for some people. I understand that. Again, all Almada can do, all the club can do, is he has to represent the club as a good person. He has to play well, obviously, because that's the expectation. These are professional athletes, and that is part of their role. And he has to represent the city well. And he has to mature, as all 20-year-olds do, whether they have something like this that's happened in their life or not. This is an opportunity for a fresh start for Thiago Almada. And to get to where he wants to get to, he has to take it, and he has to make the most of it. And I'm very hopeful because of the people that he will be surrounded by. Carlos Bocanegra, Darren Eales, Arthur Blank, Gonzalo Pineda, the locker room, your Alonsos, your Gazans, your Francos, your Josephs. These are guys that are going to be very important. Marcelino Moreno, a quiet, humble guy, family guy. It's going to be good influences for Thiago Almada. And again, it's going to be up to him to make the most of it, to get everything that he wants out of it for his new club, Atlanta United, and for him. Because if he comes in and plays as well as he is capable of, Atlanta United wins things, and Thiago Almada moves on to Europe at some point in the future in a very large transfer, and he's representing Argentina at this World Cup or the next one. These are very big steps, and Atlanta is going to be a very big part of making those steps. And he's got to follow through on them. It's up to the player at this point to make the most of it. 1:30 is the press conference with Carlos Bocanegra, with Gonzalo Pineda, with Darren Eales to talk about the Thiago Almada transfer that has been announced this morning. They're playing the video on TESE right now. Jared, anything else you want to say about this before we wrap?
No, not really. People I'm sure are going to have comments throughout the day, and that's fine. I'll be interested to see the team's comments when we have press, because I don't think that this it is a bit of an elephant in the room, that part of it, and I don't think they'll have an issue with discussing it and explaining their due diligence about it. So at that point, just kind of wait to hear what they say about that, and then waiting for training to start and waiting for games to start so we can see what he's about on the field, because that is what you are paying for ultimately.
Yeah. Pictures of Thiago and his family at the airport from yesterday. If I remember the flights, I think he would have landed this morning in Atlanta if he left Buenos Aires last night. I think the direct flight from Buenos Aires to Atlanta is an overnight one. Haven't we generally had guys arrive at like 6, 7 in the morning on that trip before? So the pictures from last night would make you think that he's in Atlanta. I don't know the flights from Buenos Aires to Guadalajara, so I don't know if he's reporting to the team there or if he's going to be here for recovering from a 10-plus hour flight. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with the team returning Sunday night. yeah, it might not make sense to go to Guadalajara. I don't know. I don't know the situation with that. We'll get an update on that today at 1:30. John, any final thoughts from you before we wrap up?
I'm right there with you. I'm looking forward to 1:30 and the press opportunity there, and then also looking forward to when you and Mike pick up the conversation on stoppage time after that. And once again, I guess don't be surprised if stoppage time slides a little bit depending on the availability, but obviously keep an eye out on social media, yours and Mike's, to see what happens. But yeah, I'm looking forward to 1:30 and then stoppage time to see the next stages.
Yeah. Look, there's going to be takes, there's going to be comments, there's going to be things. I hope people listen. I hope people have an open mind to listen. I hope that you guys who listen to us, I hope you just listen. And again, disagree, agree. We're not here to tell you what to believe. We're here to tell you what we believe. We're here to tell you what we think. And that's all we can do. This is going to be a very interesting situation from the reaction. The club is going to speak on, I think, their decisions in this process today. And I think they're going to talk about a lot of the ways, a lot of the timeline of how things happened and how things went down. So we've talked about what we think, what we're kind of seeing from the outside of it, with option to dismissal, to archiving of the investigation, what have you, to not being charged, to transfer option being turned into a transfer, to him joining the team. They'll probably go into much more detail on that this afternoon. 1:30 is that media availability. I'm sure that Doug Robertson of the AJC, Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic, Joe Patrick of Dirty South and 92.9 The Game, everybody will be talking about, all the local media will be talking about it as well, local TV. It's a big deal on the field. It's a bigger deal because of everything else around this. So club will speak at 1:30. We'll have stoppage time at 2:00. It'll be on twitch.tv/stoppage time 929. It'll also be on facebook.com/929 The Game. If you can't join us live, it will be archived on Facebook. It doesn't get archived on Twitch. Twitch is just to watch live. And the audio will be posted hopefully as quickly as possible on the Off the Woodwork folder under 929 The Game on your favorite podcatchers out there. Thanks to everybody who's part of the show today. Thanks to Poppy Miller for taking some time out for us. Thanks to Mike for dropping in and out and back in again. Thanks to everybody from last night as well. We didn't get a chance to really talk about it, but our matches of the week in the high school world last night, Maynard Jackson hosted Central Carroll, and Maynard Jackson got the sweep on the girls and the boys side. The girls side, Maynard Jackson showed they're one of the top teams in the city of Atlanta. And on the boys side, incredible game. Central Carroll jumped out to a 2-goal lead. Maynard Jackson came back and won 3-2. I couldn't feel my feet or hands or really any of my extremities by the end of that because it got very, very cold.
Yep.
I'm kind of surprised I have a voice today because I was yelling like a lunatic because that game was a fun one to call. Two really good teams. If you get a chance, you're looking for a high school game to go see. Both of those teams have some players that you should check out. Both teams are well coached. It was a really fun night out calling high school soccer. And thanks to both schools for giving us all the information and helping us prepare for that and making themselves available. We'll be back at it next week. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We have plenty to talk about tomorrow. I am sure it'll be 9:05 tomorrow. Nico Moreno will join us at 10:30. I have a few questions for Nico. We'll have a few things to discuss. Thanks for being part of the show. Appreciate it. We'll see you all tomorrow. Mucho plat, y'all.
Mucho plat, y'all.
Mucho plat, y'all.